All right, we ready?
Yes, we are. We will go ahead and get started with Coach Brian Kelly. Coach, if you'd like to get us started.
Okay. Well, a lot of thank yous, obviously, starting with Father Jenkins, Jack Swarbrick, our admissions office, undoubtedly, Don Bishop, Christy Pratt, for their work and, helping us put together an outstanding class. Academic service, again, they're so involved in what we do and who we recruit. Adam Sargent and his staff. Faculty has been terrific. Our staff, doing so many Zoom calls, we've had to ask so many of them to be involved in our Zoom calls. Recruiting office, Aaron Kearney and his staff, Jazz Smith, Matt Taylor. Matt has been instrumental in all the graphics. I thought today's graphics, I think we set a new bar in terms of, featuring our student athletes that signed with us, and the in-depth videos that got a chance to personalize those that signed with us. I don't know that anybody did a better job than our people that put that together. FIM, Sydney Sims, just an outstanding job. Riley Fangman, DP, Dave Poloquin, as you know, is integral to, this process. Bill Reese and his evaluations. Brian Polian, who you'll hear from in a little bit. All of them outstanding. So today, we're going to announce 24 signees. We do anticipate a couple more additions to the class, I might add, both in the next couple of days and in the February period. So we are not done. And given the state of our roster, I feel very comfortable. This will be the largest class that we have signed. And there was some movement during the course of the year. And as you know, there'll always be some changes. So I feel very comfortable with the management of the roster. Of the 24 players signed today, 12 on offense, 11 on defense, and, one specialist. Again, this is still about fit. This is still about fitting the culture here at Notre Dame. This university, this culture, this football program. I think we addressed the needs, as I mentioned, offensive line, 5 on the offensive line, 3 tackles, 2 guards, defensive backs, 5, 4 corners, 1 safety, D-line, 3 defensive ends, 1 defensive tackle, and 3 wide receivers. I think one of the biggest challenges in the cycle is, getting verifiable information, because you're not out in the spring. I think, we really required our staff to do their due diligence in getting information. And I think they did a great job. And, we had to make some educated decisions as well along the way. But I thought our staff did a great job of, sticking to our traits in terms of what we're looking for and making sure that we valued those and making our final decisions. We continue to recruit nationally. 13 states are represented. 10 though from the Midwest. California was represented with 5 again. Georgia was again a great state for us, and this is the 4th time in 5 years that we've welcomed somebody from the great state of Hawaii. The coaches haven't been on the road since January, so losing a spring evaluation period and the contact period, made it very difficult, as I said earlier, and not getting them on campus. But when you have a national footprint, it's a challenge. But I really am proud of our coaches, how they adjusted and overcame, these very unique circumstances. And, I thought we developed a great plan for telling our story digitally, and our excellence presentation became a staple of the process that we put together. The partners on campus that we asked to be part of this, we did virtual visits that we kind of started from scratch. And then I think our coaches learned to put these presentations together. So, Zoom gave out reward cards. I think our guys that have premier status. So really proud of our guys putting this class together. Really excited about this group, and a really good day for us, from that perspective. So I know it was a lot, but I wanted to get some of those notes in that I had jotted down. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
All right, and as a reminder, please use the raise hand function. We'll be taking questions today only on signing day and the 2021 recruiting class. We'll go ahead and start with Tim Priester.
Brian, you mentioned Bill Reese. What is his main focus? I mean, I think that the impression is that, he's looking for diamonds in the rough. Is it more general than that, number one? And secondly, is there anything about the process that was altered by the pandemic procedurally that when things get back to normal, you say to yourself, we can do it the way we just did it?
Yeah, Bill is looking for much more than just diamonds in the rough. Now, certainly if he's able to uncover some of those, we feel like if they're vetted, through our process, we're going to continue to go down that road. But no, he's got he's got a big job in front of him each and every year in terms of really beginning to shrink that board, and doing a great job of evaluating talent. So, he doesn't have to worry about, academics. He doesn't have to worry about fit. He's just really looking at talent and an eye towards projecting some talent as well. I mean, it's not all about ready-made. He has a great eye towards, which I like about him, is that we share some similar visions in terms of looking at a guy and saying, well, he could play another position. He's a running back, but he could play corner, or, this is a guy that's 6'7" and could grow into playing another position. So he's responsible for all those things. And it's not just, uncovering the diamond in the rough that you mentioned. What did we, pick up that may, in fact, still be part of the process? I think I can be much more available to the recruits through Zoom, and I think it creates a better relationship than just text messaging. At least I feel that way, and I know our coaches do. So I really think that that's not going to go away. Certainly, we want them on campus. Certainly, we want that ability to have them on campus, but I have felt so much better in this recruiting process because I can talk to the parents more. I can talk to the recruits more through Zoom than at any other time in my recruiting process.
We'll go next to Pete Sampson.
Brian, you may have touched on this there, but you made some comments at the Camping World Bowl and then again in February just about pushing higher in the rankings and reevaluating what the ceiling is. Did the pandemic force you to sort of pause that a little bit? And then my second question was just about record number of mid-year enrollees, if that was in some ways pandemic related, or if that was just sort of the nature of this class.
Yeah, no, I think I don't think we want to put a ceiling on it. I think where my mindset has changed is that I don't want to put a ceiling on where we should be in rankings. I think we should push to find the best players in the country, just as if we're pushing to be the best football team in the country. I think from a recruiting standpoint, look, we know who we want to be, and we know who fits here. If that puts us at an artificial ceiling, then so be it. But we shouldn't create one on our own. And maybe I slipped in creating an artificial ceiling that there shouldn't have been one. So we've taken that away and said, look, let's try to have the number one recruiting class in the country, but still going with fit and still going with those that we believe will succeed here at Notre Dame, and let it go, let it take us where it takes us. Did the pandemic effectively, eliminate that opportunity? I don't know. I mean, everybody had to deal with it, in their own way. It's, we are geographically in an area that it makes it more difficult. Certainly, you'd want to use those opportunities to get them to game day and things of that nature, because it is so dynamic here. So yeah, I think pandemic, definitely affected it in some regards, but I'm really happy with what we were able to do and construct, because we have a great story to tell, and we told it digitally from that perspective.
We'll go next to Tyler James.
Hi, Brian. I'm curious what made Ron Paulus a recruit you wanted to add to this class and use a scholarship on. Is the late addition related in any way to the health of your quarterbacks on your roster? And is there any sort of flexibility with his scholarship to allow you to maneuver around the roster limit? When I know that can sometimes be tricky in the future.
No, Ron was somebody that we were recruiting from the very beginning. So he was an early take for us, and wanted him part of our program from day one. We felt like we needed 2 quarterbacks. We were transparent with all of our quarterbacks, and they knew that we were taking 2 quarterbacks. So that wasn't a mystery. We were pretty upfront with that. Matter of fact, we were very clear with the fact that we were taking a second quarterback. We felt like we needed a second quarterback, and we liked the fact that there was a connection with the program. With Ronnie, we've seen him quite a bit, and it was quite frankly, it was an easy take for us.
We'll go next to Andrew McClung.
Hey, Coach Kelly. I just wanted to ask you, I'm from Tennessee, so we know all about Prince Collie here. What can you just say about him? I mean, we didn't really see his recruiting kind of kick off until last February, and then we saw offers from y'all, Oklahoma, LSU. What kind of player is Prince?
Wow. So, people always talk in terms of playmakers on offense. He's a playmaker on defense. I mean, he wrecks your day on offense. And we just saw so many similarities with Jeremiah Owusu and Prince in terms of the way they played, his suddenness, just a natural fit at the rover position for us, which we'll continue to employ in our defensive structure. So it just, to add a playmaker of his capabilities was so attractive to us, and it was just a natural fit.
We'll go next to Patrick Engel.
Hey, Brian, we heard you say early on after the pandemic where the message to recruits was finish the process and rush into decisions. And I imagine that kind of changed as the dead period went on and the cycle and this thing kind of went on. But I'm curious, what was your message as it became clear that visits weren't going to happen and that you kind of had to realize that everyone was going to have to recruit virtually for the rest of this?
Well, it was that exactly. I think I got involved with a number of the recruits that were kind of on the fence about making a decision, and told them that, look, you're going to have to make a decision without visiting. I know that this is what you want to do. You want to wait until you visit, but it's not happening. There's not going to be an official visit. I can pretty much tell you that with great certainty. So you're going to have to figure out another way to do this, and start to get your mind around it, that you may have to make a decision without an official visit. Now, some made a decision to drive up on their own and drive around campus, and that's great. Others, just relied on the virtual visits, but each one of them, I tried to alert to them that they had to get their mind around the fact that in this unique recruiting process this year, that they were going to have to make a decision without visiting. So I got involved in it, with the individuals themselves and talking to their families about the reality of it.
We'll go next to Carter Karels.
Hi, Brian. Did you see a benefit, or what benefits did you see for having some of these recruits enroll early as opposed to playing their senior football seasons? Because there'll be a number of them who will miss on their senior season. And then when it comes to Tyler Buckner in particular, did you see a benefit with him, having him enroll early as opposed to playing his senior season and joining in June? And then what do you like about Tyler Buckner as well?
Well, there was so much uncertainty about, playing at all, right? Whether they played in the spring or, they played in the fall, and what was it going to look like? So I have never been somebody that says, look, the scholarship's only good if you come at mid-semester. It has to be a family decision and one that they clearly understand the pluses and the minuses of it. I think they're well versed on, what it gives them from a football standpoint. Obviously, spring football, learning the strength and conditioning program, getting all those things, the transition to college, they get all that. They're very well versed in understanding that. What are they giving up? Are they giving up a spring season? Are they giving up basketball? Are they giving up things that they want? And if that's something that is troublesome to them, then they shouldn't come out early and they shouldn't enroll early. But by and large, these guys are high achievers. They have set a high bar for themselves and they are ready to go. They want the next step. They're looking for that next challenge. And so it's not very difficult for them because they've done so much of the work. They're really good students and they want to be challenged and they're looking forward to this next step. So this was an unusual year in a sense that, we had so many of these mid-years, but it puts them in a great position, in particular, as you mentioned, Tyler, at the quarterback position, because he's coming in with, an opportunity to compete, right? And so, he wants to get in here and learn the offense and have a spring ball under his belt and get ready to compete right away.
We'll go next to John Finneran.
Hi, Brian. I noticed when I looked at the list that you don't have a running back among the 24, and was wondering if any of the 24 can play some running back, or is that one of the positions or player that you might be bringing in the future?
Yeah, we're going to bring in. We anticipate to bring in 2 more running backs in this class. So we're expecting to within this class, we expect to sign a couple more running backs, and we expect to sign somebody that is going to help us in the back end of the defense as well.
We have a question via the chat from Allison Hayes. What similarities do you see with Ronnie Paulus and his dad, Ron Paulus?
Well, they're big, athletic, strong. I didn't get a chance to see Ron play. Ron's so much older than me. So, but, live arm and obviously just a lot of, raw talent, he'll be in a different, system and a different offense. We think he'll be well suited in the offense that we're going to be running. And so, it's projecting him a little bit for us. And when we project him, we think he's a great fit in our offense.
All right, and we will wrap it up with you there. That's all we have time for, and we'll hand it over to Coach Polian.
Great, thank you.
All right, and we are joined by Special Teams Coordinator and Recruiting Coordinator for Notre Dame football, Coach Bryan Polian. Coach, if you'd like to make a brief statement to start.
Sure. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm a little bit repetitive. I was coming off the field as Coach began his remarks, but there's certainly a lot of people that take part in this process that we need to thank, especially in a year that was so unique like this one was. Our recruiting staff with Aaron, Jazz, Matt, Sydney, and Riley. Player personnel with Dave Peloquin and Bill Reese, the admissions office, and the job that they had to do this year, not only is it related to recruiting, but just in admissions in general, in a year when standardized testing was a challenge and we had certain schools going pass fail. We had others all virtual, some hybrid. So the job that they had to do this year was such a challenge, and we're so grateful for their partnership. I do want to mention too, our partners at FIM and frankly, other coaches on the campus. When we all kind of figured out collectively that this year was going to be like any other in recruiting, there was a lot of working in conjunction to kind of bat ideas around, and the creation of that virtual visit for us was a really, really big deal. And that thing was built from scratch, and there were a lot of partnerships throughout the course of campus that helped us put that thing together. I'm sure Coach talked a lot about how unique this whole cycle was. It was an incredibly challenging cycle, and it will continue to be for the 22s because we lost all of those evaluation opportunities in the spring and in summer camp. Having to tell our story virtually, having to try and connect through the use of Zoom and FaceTime, and when the NCAA made phone calls with this group unlimited, that did help in a sense, but this no doubt was a challenge. Coaches were phenomenal. Coach Kelly was phenomenal. His availability to us day in and day out. So there were a lot of people that played a role in what we feel is a really good class, a class that we're very proud of. I do need to, my wife made me promise that I would say thank you to her publicly, because she heard the excellence presentation about 80 times from March through the summer here from our kitchen table. So, everybody's families had to adjust. We'd be given virtual visits, and a dog would run through in the background, or a child would come running up. Coach Lee did a lot of these meetings with baby Jack sleeping on his chest. So in that sense, it took adjustment from everybody. 24 in the class currently. I believe Coach mentioned that we are not done. There's possible additions here in the next 48 hours, and there are possible additions at the February date. So we are still fluid right now. We really felt like we addressed some needs. Offensive line, 5 players, 3 tackles, 2 guards. The defensive back room, obviously we're a little light on the model, and we're going to graduate some players. Defensive line, we needed some ends, and we felt like we addressed that. And then obviously three wide receivers that we feel really strongly about. It's a shame that we cannot go through guy by guy, but I can tell you as a staff, we're very grateful for every signee in this class. We're grateful for every family, their flexibility, all the things that we had to deal with. This group, it's worth mentioning Blake Fisher, the mayor, running the chat between all the commits. And for example, the job that they did when, Prince Collie, was a little bit thrown for a loop there by Coach Lee's departure to Vanderbilt, the way they kind of revolved around him for a couple of days and helped calm him down and be there for him and provide support as he was working through, a change there. So there were, like we said, there were a lot of challenges as we put this class together, but as a department, the support staff, the coaches, Coach Kelly's leadership, I think we're very, very proud of the group and excited about it. So that's kind of my opening there. And at this point, we'll take any questions anybody has.
All right, we'll go first to Eric Hansen.
Hey, Brian, I got a couple things for you. One is, were there some anxious moments when Clark Lee made the move to Vanderbilt, and how were you able to work through those if there were? The second thing is, do you anticipate, maybe not immediately, but eventually combing the grad transfer market?
As it relates to Coach Lee, I speak for the staff when I tell you the entire coaching staff is absolutely thrilled for Coach Lee and his family. he's getting a chance to go home and be a head coach in the Power Five. So we're thrilled for him. I would have preferred that it, be announced 48 hours later, but that's the world that we live in. Were there some anxious moments? We identified 2 or 3 players that we knew had very, very strong personal connections with Coach Lee. And we were very proactive about, hey, Coach Lee's done a phenomenal job. He's going to be a candidate here at some point. And especially when Vanderbilt opened, it was kind of easy to picture that. When it became official and we had announced it to our own team, we got on the phone with every commit on defense. Are you okay? What are you concerned about? And then the guys that expressed to us a little bit of hesitation, we got them on the phone immediately with Coach Kelly. So I think collectively as a staff, we handled it well. Again, we're thrilled for Coach Kelly, for Coach Lee, but from Coach Kelly on down through the rest of the staff, I think we managed it fine, and we ended up with all the guys that we were counting on, and we're blessed to have them, and I think they're comfortable with where things are at right now. As it relates to the grad transfer market, some of that is determined by need, some of it's determined by do we have scholarships available, but we are always looking. When you look to Skoranek and Nick McLeod, it's hard to say that those weren't good decisions. I mean, those guys have been terrific teammates and very productive players. We'll never make a living in the grad transfer market, but we'll always be open to it. And if we have space and can find a fit that addresses a need for us, then we'll look at it.
We'll go next to Tim Priester.
Brian, Coach Kelly mentioned Bill Reese's role. What kind of input are you looking for from him, and how do you work in accordance with him? And then secondly, the guys that you signed, the schools that offered them, the programs that offered them. Who do you think was under recruited based upon their scholarship offers class?
So let's start with the Bill Reese question. I think what Bill gives us is a very patient and discerning set of eyes. There are recruits that you can look at 50 plays off of a highlight, and you can look at numbers and say, okay, this guy's clearly an A-list player. There's no doubt. But player development here and our ability to take the Drew Tranquils and the Chase Claypools of the world and develop them and help them, become frontline players, those guys are incredibly important to our success. And those are the guys that Bill Reese has the ability to dive deep on. Hey, Bill, we watched about 50 plays on this guy on a Friday during the season, but we got to go get ready to play a game now. And can you watch 3 or 4 games and share with us your thoughts? And there are times that Bill will put together what we call point of attack tape, which is not a highlight film. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And his input, those notes, those POA films go a long way in helping us make decisions with guys that may not be obvious off of a 50 play, highlight tape or off of a combine performance. And so Bill's got the time in some cases, and certainly the patience and the discerning eyes to help us on those guys. And it's incredibly important. Anybody can look at Kyle Hamilton's tape and say, that guy's an elite Power 5 player or will be an elite Power 5 player. It's Drew White, it's Marist Leofau. It's those guys that were maybe not household names. They're developing into frontline starters. And we have to make educated decisions there. And Bill helps us collect that information. As it relates to who's under recruited, this is subjective. This is my opinion. I love JoJo Johnson. I know he's not prototypical height, but he's a feisty competitor. He's physical, and we know for a fact he can run because he's put really good times on record here in our camp. I think Kahanu Kia, had he had the chance to play his senior year would have had more than some of the Pac-12. I think Devin Apu, who was 205, at one point in his junior year, is now 6'4 plus, 225-ish edge rusher athlete. I think of certainly Joe Alt, who in our own data that we're going to put out to the media today, at one point we had listed at 240 and was playing tight end as a junior. And now, you see he's up 40 pounds, he's 280, he moves great. So look, there are obvious guys in every class, Styles and Spindler, and the obvious guys are always there. But I do feel like given the circumstances we were dealing with this year, I think we did a really good job of digging deep, and there are going to be some players in this class that maybe weren't regarded the way that they should have been. At least, that's our belief and our hope. I will say this too, to our fan base and to the media outlets that cover us. If there was ever a year that the star system may not be, the be all end all, I mean, I don't know how you can accurately rank a class when some of the top players haven't played their senior year. Some have played 6 games, some have played 8. I've never been a big believer in that anyway. I know its place in terms of conversations and, why it exists. But in the end, I don't know if this is the year that's going to hold a ton of weight, because there are a lot of guys that nobody really knows what the finished product is yet.
We'll go next to Patrick Engel.
Hey, Brian, I'm curious how many guys you had zero in-person data on, or had to go dig deep for viable data on, or how many that you had come to a camp or went to go see 2 years ago but had to go check in on. How much of the entire class was needing to do some further digging like that, or harder digging on those kinds of things than you usually have to do?
There was harder digging on everything this year. Everything about this year was harder. It was just how we were going to get the information. There's nobody in the signing class that we don't have as much verifiable information as we could possibly get. This was just a weird year. Hey man, we really are interested in you, but you're listed at 6'3" and we've never seen you in person. And then it becomes a screenshot of somebody in the nurse's office, or in a lot of cases, a screenshot of, a tape measure from Ace Hardware. There were things that we had to do that way, like Kahanu Kia. The evaluation off of the junior film was good and we liked him, but Kahanu put a video out on his own outlets of him doing a workout in his yard by streetlight. And we were watching this guy move. And then we're talking to our friends back in Punahou and saying, measure him for me. Can you tell me, I want to know exactly how tall he is, exactly what's he weigh right now. We had to do that across the board. And I will say this, there were a lot of prospects and a lot of high school coaches across the country that figured out very quickly that information was going to become really important. And people were videotaping themselves being measured, themselves jumping, themselves running, going through drills, things that we could have seen in a camp or might have been able to collect data from a combine. Guys were filming themselves doing that and putting it on their huddle link or putting it on YouTube. So there's nobody that we're going into this thing completely blind with, but we had to get really creative in terms of how we were collecting the information.
We'll go next to Andrew Mentock.
You touched on Blake Fisher a little bit earlier and the impact some of the other commits had on each other. I guess what I'm wondering is, when you have a player like that who commits early and takes such an active role in the recruiting process, I guess, can you talk a little about how beneficial that is? And do you have to guide a player like that in any way, or advise them when they get so involved like that?
Yeah, there's no doubt you have to guide them a little bit. First of all, we can't direct them to talk to anybody. I mean, that's not within the rules. We can't say to him, hey, we need you to reach out to this guy, to this guy. But there are times, and it's not just Blake, it's every class. There is that guy in every class, and he'll message you, hey man, hey coach, just talk to this guy, and he'd be really interested, and I think he'd be awesome. And meanwhile, we've seen that guy's transcript, and we know it's not necessarily a fit. So there is a little bit of hey, slow down, we appreciate you. But that is much better than having a class of 24, 25, and there's no ringleader. And I've had multiple guys tell us, ones that kind of got in later in the process, maybe a guy that committed in the fall, maybe a guy committed 6-8 weeks ago. They talk about how welcoming that commit group was via that text chain that they had, and how welcoming they were. And that was an asset in recruiting, there's no doubt. And when you have guys like that in the class that are assertive that way and rally everybody up, then it becomes a positive thing and creates momentum.
We'll go next to Bryan Driskell.
Coach, you guys kind of followed your pattern that you've done the last few years with defensive line recruiting, long athletic guys that are going to need to spend a lot of time with Matt Balis. Can you just talk about just the 3 ends that you brought in and what you guys really like about them and what they kind of add to your system?
Anya is already a big man, and he's going to offer some position flexibility. Anya is the type of guy that might someday be able to rush at 3 technique in passing down situations, because he would be such a mismatch. Schweitzer is actually the last prospect that I think I saw in person. I was in Schweitzer's school in January before the cycle ended, and we haven't been back out since. Clark and I loved him. And the issue when he was a junior was that he was playing linebacker. He was 205, 208 pounds. So why are you recruiting this guy to play the Viper position when he's standing up? You don't see him pass rush that much, but his motor was so good. And we knew, because we had seen him, he's got length. He is 6'4 plus. And through the summer, even though he was committed to Nebraska, we never stopped communicating with him, and we were watching his body. He'd send us photos and video, and you're seeing this body start to fill out. And when the time was right and the numbers allowed it, we offered him, and we felt great about it. Now, he is a guy that's going to take some physical development, but his length, his twitch, his motor, we believe are going to lend himself to being a really good player. Apu is a great bet, right? If this guy played his senior year, who knows what his recruiting would have looked like. But we see shots of this guy dunking a basketball, the way he runs, his length. And look, what we're hoping for is Ade, right? We're hoping for Khalid Kareem. Who did we beat Ade on? Western Michigan. And now you look at him, it took him 2 years in the weight room. Now you look at his production and what he looks like physically. And that's the part of player development that we believe we can hit on, because we trust Matt Balis and his staff, and we know that these guys are going to get bigger and stronger. So we're going to recruit guys with the right framework, with the right bones, with the right approach and fit. And then we believe, the physical development will come, and we're going to end up with some really good players.
We'll go next to Pete Sampson.
Brian, you mentioned some of the athletic evaluations that you have to sort of recreate on your own. Was the bigger loss the inability to sort of see these commits around your current guys, to pull your current roster and be like, does this guy fit with our locker room? Is this the kind of guy that fits with what we're trying to do? Because that's certainly part of the overall fit as well for you guys.
Yes, that is a big piece of it. And we lost that. And there's no doubt. And I think to make up for that, we did a deeper dive on anybody that we had any concerns about. Like, hey, this guy feels a little bit squirrely. We need to keep calling around, and we need to talk to not only his coach, but coaches that play against him. We need to talk to not only his counselor, but other counselors in the school. Where can we connect the dots? We always feel better when we know somebody that knows the prospect, but there's no doubt fit is really important to us, and the feedback of our own players that we get post visits, losing that hurt. So we had to try and make up for it another way.
We'll go next to Matt Freeman.
Hey, Brian. I think most people expect John Doerr to be back next year. Can you kind of talk about what went into the decision to take Joshua Bryan?
Yeah, I don't want to count on a freshman. It's not great. It's hard to do. And that kind of makes what Jay Bramlett did last year as a true freshman on a double-digit win team at our level on that stage makes what he did even more impressive. But the reality of it is, in an ideal situation, you would like to have a guy on your campus for a year to hope to get him ready and get him prepared and help him develop physically and get stronger. And, so that allowed us to do that. Now, let's this is one of those places where the relief from the NCAA as it relates to players in your program who've exhausted eligibility coming back to the original program, that guy does not count against your 85. So we were fortunate in this case. When we entered into the summer, my assumption was that we were going to have to identify a kicker that could come in here and do it as a true freshman. So this is maybe one of the few instances where the circumstances of everything that was happening around us in the world might have helped us a little bit.
We'll go next to Carter Karels.
Brian, you guys were able to see Tyler Buckner at a couple years ago at a camp, at a Notre Dame camp, and I'm just wondering what maybe you remember from that camp and just how you've seen him kind of grow since then.
Sure, I remember exactly what we saw at that camp because Tommy, Coach Kelly, and I, Chip Long at the time, we were all studying that quarterback group pretty closely. Quick release, very, very smooth motion, sneaky, really good athlete. I mean, that's an elite level lacrosse player. You saw all the plays in his junior season that he made with his feet. We feel like he'll get big enough. Obviously, he's not 6'5", but that's not necessarily what we were looking for. He'll get big enough. We loved his energy, great smile, bounce, just that it factor that you're looking for in quarterbacks. And when we were in that camp situation, it was very clear to everybody that was a competition. There were some quarterbacks in that class that knew I'm in here with 3 or 4 other guys, and I'm trying to be the one that they offer in the class. And that is by design. We need to find out who's going to rise up when they know they're being evaluated and who's going to compete. And he competed and he looked great. And we never looked back. And there were other big name guys that were in that group, and we don't wish them any disrespect. We know that they'll be good players, but in coming out of his camp performance here and the film evaluation, we set our sights on him immediately and said, all right, that's the guy that we want in the class. And fortunately enough, what Notre Dame represented and the job that Tommy did recruiting him, we were able to secure him, and we felt great about it. While we're on the topic of quarterbacks, we feel really good about the addition of Ronnie Paulus, and he's obviously a guy that we've seen multiple times in person. We know his makeup. We obviously know his family. I've known Ronnie since he was a kid. So that one was an easy one for us. And look, we could not go into next season with 3 scholarship quarterbacks. I mean, that's just irresponsible. to set your roster up the right way, you got to have at least 4 scholarship guys. And we thought that Ronnie would be an ideal second quarterback in this class. And we are, you know, he's been snake bitten a little bit. His junior year, he suffered an injury, not his fault. And then his senior year, you know, they're going in and out of COVID. They got, you know, it was just a crazy year, but we feel very confident in who we're getting as a guy and as a player, and we're excited about it.
And our last question will be from Omar Urena.
Hi, Brian. Could you share what did you see in Gabe Rubio that grabbed your attention, and how do you think he's going to fit in the defensive line?
The first thing you notice about Gabe is that he's as wide as a Volkswagen. He's a big man, and he's really, really light on his feet. And for a big man, he plays really hard. Sometimes those big guys can go 2 and 3 plays and then they tap out because they're worn down. He works really, really hard. We love his family. We love his makeup. There was a time that we challenged him in terms of, hey, you have to understand what Notre Dame is academically. And if you want that, you know, we need to see the appropriate response in the classroom. And he was phenomenal. Really, really went. And this was early in his recruitment. And he really accepted that challenge and has done a beautiful job ever since. So we think he'll fit in. It's hard to say that any freshman can play a lot. I mean, I think the one thing that Coach Kelly and our Notre Dame program has proven is that it is a meritocracy. If you're a freshman and you deserve to play, we'll play you. But, you know, he'll be in the mix. There's no doubt. And we're very grateful that he's a part of this group. Before I step away, I do want to say one last thing. The videos that our staff put out today on these prospects and the graphic work and FIM again, Matt Taylor, Sydney, our whole crew, we've seen a lot of what went out across the country. We've actually seen some national outlets comment on the work that our support staff did. And I thought it was awesome. The videos were great. I'm sure that we have some guys in these videos that 4 or 5 years from now are going to look back and blush a little bit, but they were really cool. And you know, congratulations to all our staff and all the people that put that stuff together, because it looked great today.
All right, and we will wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.